for today's webinar. I'm really excited to be with all of you. And we are starting our webinar today on empowering undocumented students to lead. You know, it's not a coincidence we're doing this session, given the value of leadership and what it takes to be a leader. It takes something to step into leadership. And for educators today who are committed to the leadership of undocumented students, it's going to be very important that we find and we explore together, well, how can we continue to impact the lives of undocumented students and cause their leadership and have them really see themselves as leaders. So today it's going to be a really a webinar for learning, for growth, for all of us to look at this aspect of empowering undocumented students to lead and learn together. I'm going to encourage you that throughout the webinar, you participate via the chat box. My colleague is with me and will be responding to questions and to comments via the chat box. They'll be sharing some of those with me. And so interact as much as possible so that we can add to the value of what it takes for us to take the time this hour to come together live. And in no way is Immigrants Rising the only expert on leadership. I read through a lot of your answers that you had from when you registered and saw the level of engagement that you've had with undocumented students. So at any time, feel free to add to the comments and engage with the rest of the folks in the webinar so that we can create this kind of community where we're growing and learning together. We are doing this webinar as part of our educator webinar series. For some of you, it's the 4th webinar that you attend. For some of you, it might be the 1st. So just for context, we've had a few webinars already. We've had some starting since October, and we're now at the 4th webinar of this series. And we're gonna be ending our series later this year in April 15th. And you have access to all of this via emailing me, or if you've been part of if you got an email for this session, you're aware that we have a series going on. After we've watched the webinar, we follow up with an evaluation. And if you submit the evaluation, after submitting 5 evaluations from the 7 webinars, we at Immigrants Rising can say, okay, this person has received a certain level of training to be considered somebody who we can certify as an UndocuAlly. So I strongly encourage you to submit those evaluations after you've watched the webinar and really demonstrate your commitment to undocumented students, and evaluation really for us to continue to grow and sharpen the quality of what it is that we're presenting for all of you. Thank you for that. Now, going into student leadership. So at Immigrants Rising, we have always prioritized the leadership of students. Who you see here is the image of our fellows at Immigrants Rising, and we tend to bring undocumented young students as fellows. That's actually how I started at Immigrants Rising. So I started as a fellow, and I remember the very first time that I stepped into Immigrants Rising at the time before FC, and I saw a lot of other undocumented students. And they began to tell us that we were leaders. So they said, you are a leader. And I, at first, was like, what? I'm just me. What do you mean I'm a leader? I couldn't see that. I couldn't see what they were already telling me or saying that I was. Because to me, I was just a regular good old person. And it took sharpening and training and a growth process to be able to really have me believe that and have the rest of the fellows in our organization believe that. We now consistently apply leadership development to our trainings, and we see young people go from, not seeing themselves as leaders to stepping into leadership after they leave our fellowship, which is really rewarding. And we are wanting to then share some of that with you all and learn from others as well. So for today, we want to define the broad umbrella of leadership. What is your own leadership role as an educator when you're working with students? Because not only is there the student leader, but you as an educator recognizing your capacity to lead. And when it says role, not like I'm an administrator, even though you might be, but that leadership doesn't require a title, right? To provide leadership, it doesn't actually require you to have a title. Leadership could come from many different folks and from many different ways, and you can then begin to see your own role. And then how can you impact the institutional change in your high school and learn about the possible ways to engage and lead as well. So the vision for Immigrants Rising is to inspire educators and allies to create spaces that foster the leadership of undocumented students. And this vision is the vision of myself and Rocio, who's my colleague, and we both focus on the work of undocumented students in high school. And we really want to work and inspire the educators that work with the students. That's part of why we developed this series, because we say educators are on the ground working with undocumented students constantly. And, you know, how can they do the best work to really impact the lives of students? And that's constantly what we're looking from, to impact you, educators, such that you would then impact the lives of undocumented students as well. And what is leadership? Well, we could have defined it in many ways, and we will in a moment provide a definition, but I want to show you a demonstration of a student who's taking leadership via this video.
Hi, my name is Christian Ramirez. I attend Undocumented School for Equity, and I'm a senior. And I am also involved in the 415 Veneers for Freedom.
Hello, my name is Eric Reyna. I work for Educators for Fair Consideration, and I am stationed at Undocumented School for Equity. Here at Undocumented, I run a club of students that help the undocumented community. For Veneers for Freedom, our alumni and students, current students at Undocumented School for Equity, that have helped the community and that have made a big impact citywide. One of the projects that they have done is the Undocumented, Unafraid, and United Resolution.
Continued connections and communication with San Francisco's citywide rapid response network to assist students who have been detained by ICE or whose families have been detained.
What these students did is that they went to the San Francisco Unified School District and they went to request for more resources for undocumented immigrants. It was something that was very important for our students. And the most important thing about this project that they had last year is that it was all youth-led. It was the idea of the students. It was the students who had that motivation, that drive to speak up.
Like I went to a principal meeting, and we passed the resolution for undocumented students last year, and I did a little checkup on the principals, the SFUC principals, and I asked, like, have you guys read the resolution? Only 2 principals raised their hand, and I put them in check. I was like, you guys need the resolution you guys need to read it, like, because if the principal doesn't read it, now imagine the educators, they haven't been reading it. Now, like, they don't know the knowledge, they don't have the knowledge of how to support undocumented students, and that's where everything falls down.
Our students are not afraid to speak up and tell our leaders, our adult leaders, our teachers, our educators, that they are failing somehow. Because I believe that's part of being a student. You have to be able to tell educators what they're not providing for you. So these students are fierce, and they have everything that it takes to be leaders and to change society here and in the world.
And I'm gonna go ahead and pause it. And because it kind of captures, at least for us, what we're talking about when we're talking about leadership, especially for students to step in and be able to do that, like hold the principals accountable, be able to say, hey, have you all read the resolution? Be able to initiate an entire project where a resolution was launched. And they just, it kind of just embodies what we're talking about when we're saying, what if every school across California, because in this context of this webinar, we have California, even though we know that it could go far and wide to like, what if every school all over the world or all over the country? But here in California, what if every high school had some kind of program or support system to empower the leadership of undocumented students? That student who's sitting in classroom, who is like wondering what they're gonna do next, having something that says to them, you know what, you can hold others accountable. You know, I talked to Cristian Ramirez, he's now at UC Davis. He was gonna join us today, except he had an emergency to deal with, so he wasn't available. But being able to recognize the difference that it makes to have something on campus that supports students to grow and evolve. And so to be really a leader as a being, what we say, it's a member of the community who inspires and moves others to take action. Once again, it's not the title, it's not the position, it's not necessarily any of that. It's someone who can actually inspire and move others to act. And we see leadership in many, many different folks and in many different people. There are different ways that I want to now provide for the way that students show up as leaders, or even you are providing leadership in your school. And we call this the ladder of engagement. So in the ladder of engagement, it's the idea that there are different levels to engage in anything, any cause that you're committed to, any organization. You engage at different levels. You can be what's called an observer, which is level number 1. Level number 2 is following. So you begin to follow. You know, some of you follow AOC, some of you follow Bernie, some of you follow certain policies, some of you follow different things across issues on climate justice, issues on Black Lives Matter. You might find yourself observing in this different ladder of engagement. Same with undocumented students, right? So you might find yourself in one of those two. You can also endorse, which is where you would forward an email, share with people, be a part of this. You could contribute to it. So now you're higher up in the ladder, contributing to whatever cause you believe in or you stand for. There's owning, like hosting an event and being like taking ownership. And lastly, we call it leading, the leading section, where you're actually committed to have other people act and grow and expand the resources. So for the people on this webinar, for all the educators, we would want you to recognize, okay, where am I at? You're most likely in the upper sections, given you are here. You know, we have a lot of educators in California and you're the ones that are here. And so you're most likely in the higher sections, but can you see yourself going from where you're at and maybe stepping it up even a little higher? Is that something that you can see the value of out of participating today in this session? And so that's kind of where we're going to be working from today. So when you're observing, you're researching, increasing your knowledge of resources, following, using, and interacting the resources available to you, attending workshops such as these, endorsing, being a resource to other students. Some of you might want to take this workshop and teach other students something. You are now endorsing, you're contributing, you know, you're supporting and volunteering on campus, providing more to the students that you're working with. Owning by hosting events, you know, highlighting things, inviting other people to play a role, bringing diverse perspectives. And then there could be leading, like where you're building relationships with people. You're saying, no, I don't want that to happen on campus. I would like it to be this. You're offering solutions to problems and motivating others to lead. Would be the different ways that people can engage. So just real quick, if you have the option of, let me see, kind of just think for yourself, okay, where do I fall? You know, where do I fall in this section? Where would I be? Just think for yourself about that so that you can first be like, okay, that's me. And then the other thing to note is what I mentioned to Rocio, the higher you are in the ladder, what happens? The riskier it is. That if you fall, the more it's gonna hurt. So someone who's observing when there's a failure in, you know, like, oh, something happened, it doesn't hurt that bad. But like I've experienced, the more I care about something and the more I've engaged with it and the more I do about it, if something goes bonkers or if it's like a heartbreak. It like breaks my heart and it like feels so heavy. That's probably part of why this administration, what's happening around immigration has felt so heavy for many of us. Now, not to the whole country, not to everyone, but for many of us who are very active, it's felt heavy because it's a fall that is even heavier, you know? And so that's going to be something that we could recognize in terms of as we take leadership, it calls for falling and getting hurt, but not getting hurt like a bad thing, getting hurt because we stepped into the ladder and we engaged and we're willing to lead. What the challenges are with leading is feeling uncomfortable or self-conscious. As an educator, you might find yourself there. You're just uncomfortable or self-conscious, fear of outing yourself as an UndocuAlly. If you are an undocumented educator, fear of outing yourself as an undocumented educator. There could be a lot of things that can show up. Uncomfortable working with other people. There's no time, you know, work, family, other responsibilities. Stress could also be something that can show up. And then there might be institutionally, there's just no paid opportunities for students. So it's kind of hard to find resources for students. And so there's an institution, in your institution, there's just nothing there that supports the growth of undocumented students. That would be some of the challenges that show up. And we do have high school students here with us today that are going to actually speak in a moment about their own leadership. Before they do that though, they're gonna embody once again what it looks like to lead. These students presented to an entire assembly in their high school a presentation to inform their entire high school about their club on campus. And they did this in a way that taught the students something about the current state of immigration and also clearly defined what they did. And so for the educators, as you listen to these students present, I just want you to be all open ears and imagine, okay, what kind of students do I have on my school that I would want them to be able to do that? Or do I have students that do that? Do I have the space in my high school to that's fostering that kind of leadership growth for students? So I'm gonna go ahead and unmute them and turn on their video. Okay, and then turn on their video.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hi.
Well, doing well.
Hello.
All right, good. We're just turning on your video at the moment. I think you have to approve. All right, perfect.
Hello.
Perfect. Well, if you can just start off by just introducing yourselves, you could say your first name and what grade you're in.
I'm Alberto and I'm a senior.
I'm Ivan and I'm a senior as well.
I'm Natalie and I'm also a senior.
Great, great. And, you know, thank you so much for being here in this session and really giving us like the opportunity to hear from you for what it is that you're about to share. I'm gonna go ahead and pop up your slides so that you can present and do your thing.
Got it.
Okay, all right, great. And then you can just tell me to click next and I'll click next.
Got it.
So we are part of a club at our school. It's this Dream Club, and we're gonna go more into detail about what we do and what we presented at this assembly.
Great.
So first of all, we begin our presentation by telling our students what an immigrant is and what it means to be an immigrant. And I believe everyone knows what an immigrant is by now. But we emphasize what it's like to be an immigrant as well, because it's not just, it's hard to be an immigrant nowadays, and it used to be hard as well. So like, it's always been hard for being like a immigrant. And the thing we most emphasize in this is that like many people that come to this country, they don't have a choice, and they cross over illegally, and it's hard to do that. It's different stages that you have to go through, like different borders up until you get to the United States, and that process is very hard. You're doing it alone or doing it with your family, especially if you're doing it with your family, because you're risking your lives, like everyone's lives. And specifically me, because I also crossed the border like 5 years ago. And also to get here legally is impossible. I think that's really emphasized a lot. So next.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do you want me to go to the next slide or continue?
Next.
Okay.
All right. So deportation, like you guys must know what deportation is already. Is when like they take somebody that's not legally set here, and deportation is something really big in our club because there are many people that have a family member or know somebody that has been like connected in a way with deportation, and I am one to like that has a personal experience of my father being deported. So I like to explain to others what I feel so they understand the importance of all this.
Thank you. Yeah.
We just define basically what ICE is basically like the people that like go around searching for people like mentioned that are illegal here, and they want to like send them back to wherever they came from to just establish a set rule where you have to be here legally or you can't be here to benefit what uh, the opportunities that are offered here in the United States.
Yeah.
So basically, we also tell our students what being documented or being a dreamer is, which is just people being brought that are living here, which were brought to when they were minors. So like myself, I'm a dreamer because I was brought here when I was 13 years old, and I don't have papers. I'm still working on those. So I think that's a good example of being a dreamer. And whoever was brought here by when they were young and they live here now, they're dreamers.
Great, thank you.
We kind of gave them a brief description of what DACA is and how right now with the Trump administration, it has made it a lot harder and made making those people who have DACA live in the fear or like unknown of not knowing what's next because the Supreme Court hasn't really decided yet and they're still waiting on that. And as many of you guys know, if you were here in the last webinar, they kind of went over what DACA is.
Yes, yeah, very good.
So we all know who Trump is, and like he's all over the news now. But ever since he got into presidency, like there's been like a lot of people that have been affected by all his like ideas and things he wants to do. And one of them is building the wall, and that's just like something he's like known for, that he wants to build a wall in order to separate us immigrants from the people in the United States and having the opportunities that they have. And it's just caused a lot of fear, and there's a lot of people that join our club because they have fear of this guy taking their family members, and they want to get educated on what they can do or how they can help others prevent that from happening, or just supporting them in general.
So here in the Dream Club, we do many things. We also we support undocumented students, we hold events, and we also participate in other events. We're regularly invited to other events and we usually go to them. Yeah, so what do? We have two main events. that we hold, and one of the main events is the Dream Club dinner. It's usually held on every November. And here during the dinner, actually before the dinner, we organize everything. It's like this dinner is done by students, and we also have allies that help us too. And we lead everything that you see in the dinner is led by the students, the club members. And there's a lot going on in this dinner, such as we have performances, we have art pieces, we have people sharing their stories, and then we also have our principal and superintendent come here and talk about the club and undocumented students.
And I went to your dream dinner this year. Last year.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, and I just wanted to add the last dinner was our 10th anniversary dinner, and it was full. It was successful. It was really successful. Over 400 my bad. Over 400 community members attended this last year's dinner, and it was very successful because we were able to get a lot of funding, raise funding for the scholarships we give to our undocumented students in the club.
Great.
So, and this is just some visuals about what we have, or like the art pieces that we have we have made so far in the Dream Club. The next.
So he already talked about the biggest thing is like the Dream Club dinner, but we also have the Dream Club conference, which is an event where it's hosted every spring for the past 7 years, and this year it will be on February 29th, and it's a student-led conference, and it's where the club members prepare and facilitate the workshops and that pertain to immigrants and undocumented students, and anybody is like welcome to come, and most people come out of here or like get out of the conference knowing something new or something that they feel confident that they could share with others, which is basically our goal, because we want to educate as many people as possible and spread the word of important information.
Very good.
So what I talked earlier about was that we get invited to other events too, and one of those events is the OYE conference, and it's a local conference. It's a student-led workshops as well, and it's mainly activism in different forms. And this OYE conference is really important because you learn from your peers, and it's also like the student conference that the Dream Club holds. And we also have the Stanford Dialogue, which is a host dialogue with Stanford students, and we usually go there to teach the Stanford students what it is like to be an undocumented student.
So with the funding that we get from the donations at the dinner, we're able to raise enough to be able to give at least or up to $5,000 each year to the students who are undocumented, seniors at Sequoia. And all these donations come from different places. We also get invited to different events, and they give us donations based off of like things that we do. So sometimes we'll perform our main performance or tell stories.
Great. And just to clarify, is that $5,000 a year for 4 years? That means you give $20,000 to the student in a 4-year university?
Yeah, total, up to that amount.
That's up to this, for one student. Great, thank you. And just so you all know, I uploaded the image. You can see me right there. I did this earlier today, and I wanted to make sure that the educators who are watching this webinar had a chance to write this on their calendars. So this is February 29th, 2020, and it's High School Dreamers Unite. So I know you already went into detail about it. Do you want to tell us anything new about this particular conference coming up?
We have different like workshops that make up this conference, and it's some consist of like the high school alumni panel, choosing and paying for college, making artworks for the cause, telling our stories.
Knowing your rights, how to like take care of your well-being,
Mm.
how to become an activist, and activism through theater, and how you can, through theater, you're able to express what you're trying to get across, which is what we do at our dinner. And sometimes, or most times at our conference, we do our main performance to kind of demonstrate our big message.
And for the workshops that we believe are really important for the community to know, it's we have them in English and Spanish. So for example, we have Know Your Rights. We have it in English, a version in English and a version in Spanish, as well as taking care of your emotional well-being. We have it English and Spanish, and we do that because we are really trying to teach others like these things that they most know. And most of the times the people that attend these workshops, they only speak Spanish.
Mm.
Not most of the time, but like there are some people that only speak Spanish. So we really want to make sure they get this information.
Okay. Yeah. And then just for this year as well, there will be, just to add to everything you've already said, there's going to be an educator track that Immigrants Rising is supporting to host along, or that will be available to lead that track, or to kind of have that section. So if you're an educator and you come and you bring a lot of students with you, you can come to the educator track as the students go and attend the different session. And then when I send this presentation, I'm going to follow up with it, and I'm going to link, and you'll get the link to the Eventbrite, and you can register yourself so that you can attend this in-person event and meet the students, meet myself, and meet other folks who are part of the community.
And it would be great if like educators could bring a lot of students with them, because what we want to do with this conference is not just like educate people, but we want to motivate people to do something in their community, because that's why they consider us the leaders here at our club, because we go around and try to get as many people as possible to take initiative and like spreading out like the program. And like we just hope to like influence them in starting something in their community, their school, their job, wherever it is they are, in order to support all the immigrants.
Great. And so that's the Sequoia High School Dream Club. Yeah, awesome. Now I'm going to go in through a couple of questions that I've already asked you before, but now we get to ask and then see what you want to share with the folks in the webinar. And this is in part some of the questions that the educators had when I asked them to register. Just kind of what motivates you to lead at your high school? Like what, you don't have to do this. So what is part of the motivation to be a leader at your high school?
For me, being a leader in the Dream Club is really important to me. And what really motivated me is the fact that I come from a family of immigrants. I feel like oftentimes they are, like a lot of them are undocumented, and they live in the fear of not knowing what's next. And I feel like being a leader for me helps me understand and gain knowledge that will then help me give out to them so that they're aware. I personally am an ally, and I just feel like just knowing that I can make a small difference really also motivates me and makes me want to continue to use my voice for those who are afraid to do so.
So personally, in my freshman year, I was an ESL student, so I only spoke Spanish, and I knew a little bit English, but I was still learning. So I was afraid of speaking English, or I didn't know much about the resources here at Sequoia High School. And what motivated me to lead at my school is that being in the program, yes, we get a lot of support from our teachers, and that helps us succeed. But what I see that we ESL students don't get we are underrepresented. We don't take those leadership roles in the clubs in high school, and that impacted me a lot. So I wanted to change that. So that's why today I'm a leader of the Dream Club, and I want to teach those ESL students that it is possible to be a leader here. It doesn't matter if you speak English second language. It doesn't matter if you don't speak it well, as long as you're willing to put up that work and teaching others about important stuff and teaching yourself information that you need to know. That's just being a leader, and I want to teach them that, and hopefully I will be able to bring more ESL students to the Dream Club and other clubs around high school and make them and help them be the leaders.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, for me, being an immigrant, I feel like there's not that many opportunities of being a leader, not just in my high school, but just in general. I feel like we don't have that many opportunities presented to us and to like show that we can be leaders here in this country. And the biggest thing that motivated me to like lead at my high school is that there's many people that are uneducated and they don't know like that people that are like right next to them are undocumented and they don't know what they've gone through. And then because from personal experience, when I told my story at a conference and like just at an assembly we had, many people came afterwards crying, saying that they didn't know that I've gone through all those things. And I was like, it's not something that you demonstrate, but from the actions you do, but it's like understanding where people come from. And I explained to them that it's not just me, like the whole community of immigrants feel the same way or feel some type of like connection to what I say, because we all go through like similar things and it's hard and many people don't understand that or just they don't have anywhere to go to get that information.
Great. So I hear like a sense of commitment to the community. Like, you know, I'm in this situation or I know somebody who's in the situation and I have a commitment to impact and make a difference for this community. Yeah, great. Great. And what is it that allies or educators actually have done? So what did the educators on your campus do that has helped you step into your leadership?
So like I said before, we, the staff here and everyone here at Sequoia, they help you. They want the best for you. And especially here, our allies in the Dream Club, they don't let you give up at any time. You cannot say no. You can never say no.
You can't say no. That's a good way.
So yeah, I think not letting because it is really frustrating and scary to like take those leadership roles because, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, and I have to manage my time. And there's just a lot going on in high school, and then having someone next to you telling you, oh yeah, yes, you can do that, I can help you. Here, I have these resources for you, you can use them. You can talk to this person and then you'll find this information. That a lot has helped us stay as leaders and keep going and be motivated to be a leader.
Educators here are also very active and they're very aware and they're constantly like representing Dream Club and like showing a lot of support. And so just knowing that we have support all around, whether we are in the Dream Club meeting or we're outside, we know that we can count on other staff and other teachers to really help us spread that idea of like trying to educate everyone. And I feel like that really helps us continue because it's like we're motivated to continue doing because of the result of like having those staff also use what we've taught them and we've shown them to other students who are not a part of the Dream Club.
Just to add on to like what Ivan said about like having a lot of support from everyone here, I feel like that's been the biggest thing for me because personally, I understood what it meant to be an immigrant like by myself, but like getting educated from all these other like things that are going on in the community really like made me be aware that it's more than what I thought it was. And so that makes it more complicated for people to understand, and they won't understand if somebody tells them. So if I don't do it, who will? And that's what motivates me to just like do like these type of things where I like say share personal experience or like educate them on things they might not know.
Yeah, thank you. And I know that you also have Jane in the room. So she's somewhere in there. You could be a voice or you can pop up. It's up to you. But what I wanted to ask Jane, I know that you all had already mentioned that it's been going on for 10 years. So Jane, if you can speak a little bit about what have you all done to kind of keep this going for 10 years and to have the success you have now?
Well, the clubs existed for almost 12 years. The dinner has happened for 10. But we started really small, with just a few students, and we started really within the school educating the staff, doing presentations or having students tell their stories to staff at staff meetings, and just a miniature scholarship fund. And then little by little, we grew. Our first dinner had maybe 100 students. 100 community members. And now, as these guys said, we have over 400. We were turning people away at the door.
Yeah.
Having these projects has really made the difference. Like, it's what keeps the club going, I think, because since the students are planning the dinner, and then as soon as we finish the dinner, they're planning for the conference. They have to come to the meetings and at the end. So I think if we didn't have some kind of projects to work on, in the beginning we spent a lot of time just talking, and I think just providing support. But in order to have students keep coming back, we really focus on these projects. But it also gives the students a lot of opportunities to develop a lot of skills. So
that's really interesting that you mentioned that. I had never actually seen that way, like how having like a goal or an outcome, like we're creating this thing, and I hear that the students, you all own it, like it's yours. So that's really great. You all every year kind of gets to get reinvented by the group that's there, and there's this like already like bound of the kind of project it is, which has you all level up in the level of engagement. Like in terms of the ladder of engagement, it quickly moves you up the ladder to like observing, to like, okay, someone's got to do something. So you then take ownership and you move forward. Yeah, that's really, really great.
I agree like heavily on that, because like, yes, I'm a leader right now in my high school, and I've been for like a while now, but I'm eventually going to leave, and who is going to be the one to step up and like do what I'm doing right now, like take my place. Like, I need to give them an example of what it's like and what the impact of the things that we're doing, in order for them to actually realize and actually want to engage in those type of things and do the same things we're doing.
Yeah, very good, very good. So then lastly, what advice would you have for educators who are working to support undocumented students in their leadership? And we'll take one of you so that we can move forward into the next phase. So one of you, whomever would like to answer this last question.
Well, personally, I believe the educators who, in order to help those undocumented students be leaders, I believe the best way, talking personal, the best way that worked to me was the pushing of like those undocumented students, like, because when we're gonna say no at the beginning, like for sure we're gonna say no to those leadership roles, because it's hard and it's really scary. Like, you hear the word leader and you're like, oh no, I'm not doing that, because that's what I did in the beginning. But having those educators, allies, and those staff members, whoever it is that's supporting you and pushing you to take those roles, to not letting you give up, I think that's really important, because that way we feel that we're significant to this community, to this school. Like, if we have someone telling us, oh yes, you can do it, or do it, you have to do it. Just give us like an insight of, oh yeah, we must be important to this. So we might really change our minds and be like, sure, why not? Let's take this. And then we might stay, because after realizing the impact we have on the community and other people, it feels really nice, and that has made me stay, because it's like it is frustrating to be a leader. But then if you really take the time to reflect on your actions, you really know that what you're doing is positive, and this will lead up to really big things in the future.
Great, great. So your advice is the keep on pushing people, like students, push them to the point where they can't.
Never take a no.
Hey, great. Great. Thank you for that honesty. It's true. I mean, in many ways, depending on how we work with students, but sometimes a student doesn't see it, doesn't recognize it in themselves. And so the educators or even other students in the club, like you all as seniors, I'm sure sometimes talk to the freshmen and the sophomores, and you also motivate them and tell them like, hey, step up. And people have to let go of their time, their conflict, their schedules to think about, okay, yes, I'm going to do this. That's really great. So now, for leadership in high schools, it's going to be critical that students are exposed to learning experiences that foster their leadership, almost like creating projects, setting up a dream club, like having actually an exposure in your high school that allows and creates a space for students to blossom. It's not common, while it does happen for students to especially when we're in high school and you transition, you're there for 4 years and you transition over, to start the Dream Club just a student by themselves. They might, but it's not as common. It's common that a student starts it along with an educator, or that there's some support from an educator to actually initiate it and start it and then sustain it. So it's gonna be critical that students are exposed to learning that fosters that growth from all of you as educators. So for the educators, this is now for educators. Now we don't get to hear you speak since we are in the session. So we're gonna have to have you kind of write on the chat box, but what are some of the existing opportunities for you to lead as an educator? So if you could just write on the chat, like in what ways do you see yourself leading, or what's already there for you that you're taking on in leadership, or anything you want to say to the students who just shared with us. And this is where we wait for people to type.
Elevator music, please.
Okay, very good. So we have right now a question for you all. And the question is, how do you recruit new members for your club?
Well, one of our big things for me personally, I'm an avid the program avid, and a lot of the avid students in my class are undocumented. And so I, as a leader, really push them and encourage them to come to these meetings, and really told them what it was about, and how it would be beneficial, and how it's a community outside of a community that you can depend on throughout school, and an extra resource that will help you throughout high school and also throughout college. That way, because being undocumented, you live in that fear of unknown and not knowing what's next. So kind of just motivating them to come and really informing them of how beneficial it would be for them in the future and present really is what I did.
Great. And it's so good because you start off with again, in terms of the ladder of engagement, just come. You're not, right now I'm not asking you to take on the whole club. Right now I'm asking you to come, and then as people come and show up and get asked to take on more leadership, they can engage further.
Yeah.
So you do it through class. Great.
We are also being visible. So we have these shirts. Every year we make shirts, t-shirts that we wear every time we come to the meetings, we try to wear them. And that way, other students can see, we have the name of the Dream Club here, and then we made our art piece here, and they can, if people see this, they're oh, from what club this is, from what is it, and then we can explain it to them. We also have posters around school, so they can see kind of a little bit explanation of what the Dream Club is, when we meet, and where we meet. And yeah, those are other ways to like recruit people.
And then after like telling them what the club's about and like how we tell them it's about immigrants and stuff like that, like we tell them not to get discouraged just because it's like, oh, there's immigrants there. Like we encourage allies to join. Like we say it's not just for immigrants, it's for people that actually support us, to make sure that everyone feels like they have the most support that they could possibly get here at Sequoia.
Very good. Very good. So you would really encourage everyone to come.
Mm-hmm. Everyone.
And we had somebody, one of the educators also mentioned that, you know, that they represent the needs of the students in the governance committees to change the climate of the campus as a whole. Sometimes also recognizing that the way that a person can lead, like you all, even in Sequoia High School, might have might have leaders on your campus that don't necessarily engage with the Dream Club, but they're educators who provide leadership by representing that voice in a wider campus role or something else, right? That can also be a way that they can show leadership. And that's what one of the educators mentioned on the chat box that I just wanted to bring up. Really, really awesome. So then what we're gonna then do now is, are there any more questions for the students from Sequoia High School, or anything that you wanna ask, that anybody wants to ask around leadership? Do we have any questions? Okay, great. So we haven't received any questions. So what I wanna mention is I wanna show you all what you can see at Immigrants Rising. So if you go on immigrantsrising.org, what you will find through our website, and this is also for you all students, I'm not sure if you've ever gone on our website, you might have, but we have various resources. And one of the keywords that we can, and that one of the resources that I really like is the top 10 ways to support undocumented students. And this resource is a resource that we recommend for educators to download and print. And in this resource, you can find a lot of different tips for doing a lot of what Sequoia High School has now done for many, many years, but being able to then see it in writing and see how can you apply this in your community. So engaging the way you would engage with students, building networks, you know, how do you build the agency and power, like the agency and power we see in the students right now, because you all are powerful. and being able to, that gets built and that gets created, right? And so we do have this guide that you all can go on our website and find. That's the top 10 ways to support undocumented students. Now we do have another question that came in as I was mentioning that. And the question is the very great question, which is, how do we encourage students to lead and be visible when there is fear in themselves and in the community, especially right now?
You can use us as an example. You can show them what we do and why we do it. Like, we've been explaining what we do, how we feel, what these clubs mean to us, the value of what we do, and the impact that we have. And if you like, it's basically like you're selling something. You're technically selling something like an object, but you're like offering opportunities for students to get together and make a change in your community. And honestly, if you would ask me to be a leader and just come to the Dream Club, I would have been like, well, it's just a club, like whatever, it's just like every ordinary club. But no, this is something bigger than that. And if you like, that's how I got convinced. Like Natalie, like she said, she went to the AVID class, and that's the reason I came to the Dream Club, because she pushed me to come because she saw that I was an immigrant. And seeing more of the things really made me stay, because before that I said, I'm just gonna go to a meeting and go back and just like not come again. And seeing all the things like really made me like stay here and establish myself here.
Yeah, now I have a question about this pushing thing, okay? Because I know I tend to use push too. So did they literally push you?
No.
Okay. So when you say push, what do you mean?
Encourage us to come here. Like,
don't take a note.
Yeah,
never take a note.
No. So Sequoia High School, you all don't take notes. Natalie doesn't take notes. Maybe it's Natalie.
Don't say, oh, you need to go to the club. Say, you have to go to the club.
You have to go to the club. All right. So I hear there's a level of commitment. There's a level of conversation called you have to be there. Like It's like so important. You're someone that would strongly benefit. And I really saw that when I went to your dream dinner. You all weren't shy. You all weren't shy about what the situation is. You all had a lawyer, or like you all had representatives. You all shared stories. They were super intimate, super deep. You all had a performance. Like it wasn't anything shy about the situation of undocumented students. It was very public and very like, here we are. And, you know, somebody said it's not like we are necessarily unafraid, because there definitely is people who have fear, and it could be there. It's simply we can act even with fear and give people the space to maybe just attend the meeting and then go more from there if that's how much they want to participate.
I also feel like by creating a safe environment and within the club really helps encourage the students to go, because they're aware and they know that like they're in a safe place, and that they're able to share how they like what they feel, or not being afraid to go up to the educator and be like, hey, like this is my situation, like what should I do, like, and they're not afraid to ask for resources. They're not afraid to ask for help, because they are in that safe environment. And I feel like building a safe environment takes time, and it's not going to happen immediately. So I think like just having that patience along with creating that safe environment is really what kind of encourages students to come.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you all one last question that one of the educators asked, and that's, how do we hold the space for the students where they are leaders and get discouraged due to the news and constant attacks on the community? So how do we hold space for that discouragement after seeing attacks and things on the news?
Just supporting each other. Like that's the whole like thing in our club. Like we're not just a group of friends that comes together and meet up to see what we can make a change in. It's like a family. There's trust and confidence that we're gonna get things done, and we're gonna make a change, so that those bad things that are like popping up on the news, we make sure we can end them or reduce them to a point where they're gonna become something that we don't have to worry about, and we can move on to the next thing and just keep on going like that in order to make the most change possible.
Yes.
Great. So it sounds like you all just have developed this relationship, relatedness, connectedness with yourselves and in the community. Really great.
Yeah, I believe that this drawing club is not just any other club. It's basically just really something really way deeper than a club. It's building something that will lead up to big events. Everything just big and deep.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you all. We're now going to make sure you all have our contact information if you need to reach us. You could reach me at Estefania@immigrantsrising.org. You can reach Sequoia High School at jslater@seq.org, and that's Jane's email, and she oversees the Dream Club at Sequoia High School. Since these wonderful students will be most likely graduating, having someone that you can reach out would be Jane. And then if you wanted any contact information, you would go through her. We do ask that you give us our feedback about how we did. So you can actually just point your phone to this little QR code, and it'll take you directly to a to a feedback form, or you can go to the link tinyurl.com/highschool/HS Undocumented Leadership, and that'll also take you to the feedback form. Again, we're asking that you submit this as part of the certificate that we're giving at the end after our webinar series. So we thank you for your commitment. We thank the students. Thank you all for being here, for joining us. I super appreciate it. And going out and have an amazing day and make a big difference.